Hello, everyone. Good evening and good morning, wherever you are, or good afternoon. Welcome to the National Assembly of Malaysian Students in America's Career Webinar Series. The purpose of this series is to expose Malaysians in the US to various fields of interest, from public policy all the way to journalism. Featuring experienced professionals from key industries in Malaysia, this webinar series hopes to encourage Malaysians to pursue their dreams by establishing a solid foundation for all of us to kickstart their journey. So I'd like to introduce myself. I am Raihan Amir, a junior at Boston University, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's webinar, or today's webinar. With the Boston Consulting Group, we're very honored to have them tonight. Before we begin, allow me to introduce our panelists, Poh Yi and Chong Chi-hung, who are both working in Boston Consulting Group, an American worldwide management consulting firm. So the first speaker, Poh Yi, graduated from University of Michigan back in 2008 with a Bachelors of Science in Actuarial Mathematics and Economics. While in UMich, she served as the 2000 president of the University of Michigan Malaysian Student Association, where she learned how to balance her responsibilities as a student. After graduation, she began her career on the consulting track at BCG in Kuala Lumpur. As she has grown from her experiences, she is now working as the AP HR Analytics Projects Lead. Poh Yi became interested in joining BCG because of the global culture experience, exposure to various industries, and of course, the endless learning opportunities that are available. So I would like to introduce our second speaker, which is Chong Chi-hung, who graduated from University Technology Petronas with a Bachelor's of Engineering in Electrical and Electronics. He continued his Master's of Engineering in Management Science and Engineering in Stanford University. In his graduate years, Chi-hung was a part of the Stanford University Graduate Council as a social media correspondent. When he started his career at BCG, he worked as an associate and worked his way up to become a consultant at the firm in Kuala Lumpur, but now he is in New Jersey. He joined the BCG family because of the nature of the job that drew him in, which is very problem-solving oriented. Like Poh Yi, Chi-hung also favors that BCG offers a lot of learning opportunities and that his time there gives him good exposure to various industries. We're very honored to have you both here with us today and tonight. Throughout the webinar, I'll be asking both our panelists a set of questions, but anyone can feel free to comment any questions you may have in the live chat box on YouTube. And remember to include your name and university. Now, some of our audience may or may not have heard about the Boston Consulting Group. So let's begin with an overview of the company, and what better way to hear about it than from the alumni themselves who are currently working there, Malaysian alumni. So Poh Yi and Chi-hung, how would you summarize the Boston Consulting Group to students? We can start with Poh Yi and then Chi-hung.
Thank you very much, Raihan, for the kind introduction and for the invitation to join your webinar. I'm really excited actually to have this opportunity to give back to the Malaysian students community in the US, having last been there almost 9 years ago now. So it's very nostalgic. So thank you for having me back. The Boston Consulting Group is a global management consulting firm, and it's all right if you don't know what it is. I mean, first of all, I'm going to say it's okay if you don't know much about BCG or you don't know much about consulting, because I certainly didn't as a student in university. But in a nutshell, what BCG is, it's a consulting firm, and consulting firm helps companies really solve their largest problems. And we are the pioneers in this industry, one of the pioneers in this industry. We have 85 offices across 48 countries, including 5 in Southeast Asia, one of which is Kuala Lumpur. And here in KL, we work with the government, with top industry leaders, as in the biggest companies in Malaysia, to help them solve their most pressing questions, right? So I'll give you an example to put it very tangibly on some of the projects I've worked on. Was I think 2010, we helped 2 banks merge together, right? So one of the larger banks had acquired a smaller bank, and we helped facilitate that merger. What do you do about your signboards, right? Making sure that the customer experience is not disrupted during that time. So we played that facilitator role and brought in that experience of having done past mergers to help these two banks come together as one unit. So that's one example. So yes, in a nutshell, we are a management consulting firm, and what management consulting firms do is that we help our clients with their largest problems, and we bring in either a unique perspective or our experience in that, bring an independent view or bringing in that experience that we have within that field. Ed?
Sure. I think just first and foremost, thanks again for having us around. I think it's a Friday night. A lot of you guys are still students. I still remember back then when I was a student. Spending Friday nights talking with people from the industry is actually really interesting. So thanks for having us around. I think Poh Yi did a good job of summarizing what the Boston Consulting Group is. Large-scale, multinational consulting firm. If I were to add on like 2 or 3 things, I think the first thing is that think of us as problem solvers, right? Engineer, I did a lot of problem solving for the engineering industry. But management consulting, BCG in particular, is about solving problems across different industries. So think of not just banks, think of, for example, oil and gas companies, think of consumer goods companies. So how do you actually solve problems in a very effective way? I think that's what we do best. The second thing to add as well is it's actually a very interesting task, right? So how do you actually do that by leveraging experiences across different industries? And also to sort of share with you, Poh Yi talked about a banking case that she has done before. Similarly as well, the last 3 to 4 years that I've been there, they were solving cases. I was helping a bank to sort of be a regional bank. It was a Malaysian bank trying to be the top 3 bank in the region. Right now, I'm doing a 1-year transfer in the US. It's about helping a $20, $30 billion company of how should they think about solving their to be more effective, to be more lean, so they can take on competitors. So in a nutshell, we are solving problems for large-scale companies, and we have access to the top-ranked CEOs and CFOs and being able to shape their thinking and be thought partners across different industries. I think that's what BCG does best.
Okay. Thank you both for that perfect summary about what BCG does. So the second question that I'm pretty sure a lot of our audience is asking is why did you apply to work with BCG after graduation? With Chi-Young, if that's okay?
Sure. So I think just pure confession about my background. I did engineering. So I did an engineering in UTP, Dept with Petronas. And then I wasn't very sure of what I wanted to do after. So I went for a master's in Stanford. And I think a few things that sort of struck me during my years in engineering was that I think I liked engineering because of the problem solving. It was about, how do you think of solving a problem in a step-by-step way? I love mathematics, right? I love physics. It was very like rigid in a way. There's only one answer, but how do you actually solve the problem? But at the same time, I think there was a part that I didn't like that much as well. It was about, I was someone who was easily bored. I wanted to sort of be challenged across different areas. I did an internship across a few oil and gas companies, and I thought it was interesting. But I didn't want to be in the oil and gas industry for the longest time. So I wanted something that was a bit more diverse, something that would allow me to work across different projects, across different industries. This, I think I spoke with a few people who were doing their masters there as well. And I think a few things are quite interesting. I think A was that I spoke with a few consultants, and they said that, okay, if you like problem solving, if you like working across different industries, look into consulting. But I think even more interestingly as well was B, when I spoke with a few different consulting firms. I had quite a few BCG friends, and they were actually quite like amicable, amiable, and they were telling me all about the whole culture about BCG. So I gravitated towards BCG, towards consulting, and throughout the interview process that I had, solving cases, so they give you problems that you try to solve on the spot, and I saw that you sort of in solving problems, and it was across a myriad of industries, and that's, I think in a nutshell, that sort of attracted me towards joining consulting. And gosh, it's like 3 years ago, and that's where I am right now.
Okay. Thank you, Chi-Young. How about Poh Yi? what made you apply to work with BCG? Yeah.
So again, pure confessions. I had not actually heard of BCG until my junior year. And I only heard about BCG because one of my friends from B school, he was raving on and on and on because BCG was coming to campus, and they were going to visit the B school, and he was so excited about it. And I was like, what's he so excited about this company? What's so great about this company? And that was actually my introduction to BCG. I didn't join the campus presentation because I'm an actuarial math student and not a B school student, and I was very set on becoming an actuary. I was doing all the professional exams and did an internship in the US. But one thing I knew I wanted to do was to return to Malaysia upon graduation, right? So when I researched this BCG, and I found out that they do have an office in KL, and then I got in touch with some of the associates in the BCG office, that really opened my eyes, right? Because I was like, wow, I was very excited to know that a company with such a global culture exists in KL, because I had in my mind that it could be quite difficult in Malaysia to find a work environment that matched the experience I had in the US, right? So when I spoke to my friends, the associates in the BCG KL office at the time, who also graduated from different universities in the US, they were telling me that it's a very non-hierarchical structure, it's a very collaborative structure there. I was very excited, right? I was excited about going back to a company which has a very similar culture as what I experienced in the US. And I was also excited about not being so, having that wide exposure to different industries, right? So again, I was very set on my actuarial pathways, but this really brought in my mind that, hey, there are actually careers out there that could use my skills, the analytical skills which I've developed as an actuary, but that can be applied and broadened to a broad scale of different industries. So I was quite excited about that, and I just leapt in.
Okay, thank you both for answering that question. And I feel like it's really nice and relieving for students to know how BCG actually gives that global exposure while still being at home, because it has a firm in Kuala Lumpur. So that is really nice. The following question, this is for Chi Hong. We were informed that you're a part of a one-year program called Associate Abroad Program. Could you explain more about this program to the audience, and how different was your experience compared to working in Malaysia?
Sure. So for those of you guys who are wondering, like why Poh Yi seems to be in a bright room and mine's a bit darker, I'm actually in the US right now. So it's like evening time, 9:13 p.m. for me as well, and the same time zone with most of you guys. So I am actually on a one-year transfer. It's called the Associate Abroad Program. I'm part in the New Jersey office. So a bit of context there, I was in the KL office for the last 3 years. I just transferred over last September. So I'll be here for a year, and I'll be working in cases in the US. So I think a couple of things will be probably quite interesting to you guys. I think one is that what I really like about BCG is about the whole transfer program. So when I was there for 3 years, I think it got to a point where I wanted something more. And as part of BCG, you could always apply to do, so you could do an associate abroad, which is essentially matrices. You can sort of request for a transfer. You can do secondment programs with different organizations, learn a bit more about different organizations as well. I think that speaks very well about the firm culture. You back in the home office is about helping you to grow and learn. Last year, reasons as well. So my girlfriend is actually in the US. So I wanted to sort of be in a different office, be in the US. So I applied for US offices. Since I came here in September, I've been here 9 months, I guess, 8 months. Time flies, and I think back to your question, Raihan, about how is it different? Mm-hmm. Malaysia. I think let me just walk you through very quickly. I think a few similarities and a few differences, which I think is something that was very eye-opening because I was working only in KL in the last 3 years or so, just because of So I think the biggest similarity that struck me as quite interesting was, right, so when I first came here, I was expecting a culture shock, right? Because everyone is going to probably act differently, speak differently. But I think to a very pleasant surprise, the way that BCG works in the US, I work across a New York case. I'm currently based in Atlanta, flying in and out every week. The way that it worked here is so similar to the way that I've been working back in KL. It's the same kind of analysis skills. It's the same kind of conversation, the same kind of communication, the same kind of meetings that I have, which was very comforting in that sense. So I think that's the biggest similarity that was like very, very pleasantly surprising. In terms of the differences, I think Malaysia, right, which is where I was brought up in Malaysia, very much a developing market. I think clients are slightly different compared to the US. So US clients are a bit larger scale in size. They have used consulting firms for multiple years. So what that means is that when they engage consulting firms, they typically know how to use us, right? So they get us and solve like very specific problems. So it's all of like very specific scope in the US versus back in Asia where it's a bit broader. We can help them to sort of strike out different strategies because of how developing the market currently is. Probably the similarity and differences would be mentioned earlier, comparing New Jersey, New York, Atlanta, which are cases in the US, versus Kuala Lumpur, like where I've been working mostly for the last few years.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Ji-Hung. So it's really nice how BCG also offers the opportunity for you to work with in a larger scale and smaller scale. So it's in a larger scale in the US and also smaller scale in Kuala Lumpur. So the next question would be, what are some of the challenges that both of you faced when you first worked with BCG, and how did you overcome them? And we can start with Poh Yi.
Sure. Wow, that's a big question. So, and I tell this to everybody: if you are joining BCG for the first time, especially if you're joining fresh from school, you just have to be prepared to work hard, right? Because it's your first time in the workforce, and BCG is a very fast-paced environment. We spoke about some of the projects we worked on before, and how it typically works is that you're assigned to a project which may go on for, say, 4 months. And let's say your first project is in financial services, in banking. And then, after that, you could be assigned to a totally different industry, right? You could be working with an oil and gas company in a completely different country, right? For the following, say, 3 months on a different topic, maybe. Like maybe the first topic was a merger. The second topic of the oil and gas firm is on organization. And maybe after that, you're assigned to go out of the region, right? Outside of Southeast Asia or outside of KL, and you're working with a food and beverage company on their entry strategy into Vietnam or something like that, right? So it's immensely exciting. I think very few other jobs will allow you such opportunities. And it's not just working industries and different topics in a short time frame, but it's also that you are given such leverage, right? So you're given the opportunities to present at the steering committee meetings, which are meetings where we present to the senior management of the firm or even to the board, right? So the opportunities, I think, are unparalleled. But having said that, that also means that you'll have to work very, very smart and very, very hard in the first year as you try to learn the ways of consulting, right? So Ji-Hung mentioned, the way we do analyses at BCG is very, very much the same as what he experienced in KL as in New York. So we have our own methods of coming up with analyses of how we present those to the clients. So those are some of the kind of basic skills that you will have to pick up. How you present, how you stand in front of clients, those are skills, again, that you pick up. But it's very rewarding. So work hard, but it's also very, very rewarding. And work hard, it's not as scary as it sounds, because everybody else more senior than you in the firm would have gone through the same thing, right? They would have also similarly started either fresh from undergrad or from MBA, and they would similarly have had to learn that BCG way of doing things. And so they are very much very willing to help you, guide you in case you need support, right? And I think, at least for me, after the first year of learning how to write PowerPoint slides in a client presentable way, learning how to stand in front of clients, learning not to be afraid of huge Excel models. After that, it was really quite a, I would say, almost a breeze. You still have to work hard, but it's worth it. The experience that you gained and the confidence that you build in yourself, right? Imagine you're learning so fast, and you have to kind of believe and trust in your skills and your capabilities because the firm does believe in you. That's just something very precious.
Thank you, Poh Yi, for sharing that with us. So
Sure,
what are some of the challenges? Yeah.
And I can't agree more. Let me just start off with confession right off the bat. I still feel constantly challenged still as part of BCG. The challenges are different now. So let me walk you through my first year, second year, third year, and now, like what the challenges are. Poh Yi, right? When I first joined, it was March 2014. The challenge back then was how to be a topic expert very quickly. I remember I was sitting, it was my first, the senior partner came in, I want to know all about watches. I was like, okay, I don't know anything about watches. He's like, good, find out about it. So that sort of typifies what happened in my first year. It was how do you actually be a topic expert across different industries. I was working, I think, king of short cases. I was working across like 4 or 5 cases across a year, across watch company, across an Asian strategy, across a public sector in Malaysia. So it was how do you actually become a topic expert across that particular industry you're in, and how do you convincingly communicate your ideas and be someone valuable not just to clients but also within internal meetings. That was my first challenge, my first year. I was then moving into a bit more about, okay, now you can be a topic expert. How do you actually like crunch out like really insightful communicative slides, right? How do you do a 25 to like 200 megabytes model in a very quick, understandable, simplified manner that your manager can see it and have like full trust in you? And that wasn't easy for me, right? I think I did engineering, I did MATLAB C programming, but like, as it sounds, it's about, I mean, making difficult things is easy, but making difficult things simple, I think that was difficult. It was about, okay, Chiong, you're now a bit senior. You have mastered how to speak with clients. You are probably topic experts in certain industries. Now I want you to start managing people, right? So I have like a bit more junior colleagues who sort of go under my wings. And people management to me was very difficult. It was not about how good you are anymore, but how nice and patient you are. Someone who's more junior, maybe someone who's good, and help them learn and grow along the way. Toughest learning. And then once I got a bit better, I'm still learning along the way as well. I think once I got a bit better, it was okay, Shihong, now you got an associate abroad. We're going to throw you in New Jersey. It's going to be a different country, but now mindset, right? When I came here at the very start, it was all these cultural integration issues. It was difficult, but then when I realized that, okay, culturally it's very similar in terms of the way we work. How do I make myself valuable in a different country? I mean, there's different nuances when I spoke about Malaysia versus US. It's about how you actually become an effective consultant in the US, and that was a different kind of challenge. And I think just to sort of cap it off, right, I think the challenges to sort of evolve along the way as well. I was in school, I think I was the kind of person who sort of got bored very easily if things became a bit staid and rigid. And I think these challenges kept me growing and learning. And one point to note there, so I think back to what Poh Yi said about the whole like embrace the learning, is along the way you have fantastic people to help you. I remember, I think Poh Yi probably didn't remember, when I first joined, I remember seeing Poh Yi, he was very confident, very close. I remember having a conversation with her as well, how to actually succeed in BCG, right? I think these are all the conversations that you have with people around you to help you away. And there's also a lot of different learnings. I don't want to talk about too much about it, but we can talk more about it later. Like the difference of structural mentorship programs, trainings, opportunities to help you grow and embrace challenges. I think that's like one of the biggest, plus points for me about joining consulting, about joining BCG.
Right. Thank you so much for answering that question. Yes, and I'm pretty sure that wherever you go in the future, it's really important to like reach out and ask for help and always be open to trying new things because you learn as you go along. So it's really nice to know that BCG actually believes in in whoever works there, that like you can master any skill as you go along. Okay, so we have a question from the audience. Thank you, Ida from the University of Michigan. That is Poh Yi's alma mater. Yep. She's currently studying economics and is wondering how important are technical skills in her everyday job scope. And by technical skills, she means like computer science, finance, math-related software, and such. So we can start with Poh Yi.
Sure. I think the most important skills are logic, strong analytical skills. So clearly you need to, that's related to logic as well, right? You're able to frame a problem, to structure a problem, to break something big down into small pieces and attack those small pieces in a logical sequence so you can come up with a solution for the client's problem. I would say less so on mathematical softwares. So Chi Hong mentioned MATLAB, but Chi Hong, I don't think you ever used MATLAB in BCG, have you?
Zero.
Yeah, no.
Last 3.5 years.
Yes, so we use a lot of PowerPoint, we use a lot of Excel. We are increasingly, as we go digital, using advanced analytics tools like Tableau and Alteryx. You may have heard of those tools. So while we may not necessarily use the technical tools or skills that you have learned in university, I think what is transferable and what we are actually looking for when we recruit is your capability to learn that technical skill and how you logically process information. So it's more than just a skill that you have with a particular program or software, but it's the underlying capability to learn and to master a tool or a software and to apply that in business thinking.
Thank you, Poh Yi.
Yeah, I agree completely, right? It's something that's definitely good to have. If you have, I've met people who are terrific in like MATLAB programming. They are fantastic with like Excel modeling, right? They are fantastic with different programming languages. For example, like the VLab in Excel. So I think these are skills that's good to have, right? If you have them, fantastic. But I think Poh Yi is right. Let's look at what is like the really, really basic table stakes that's really important. I think it's about having of structural thinking and logical thinking. Pieces of problems down into very small pieces and tackle them in a very sequential yet thoughtful manner. How do you actually appear thoughtful in an interview as well? Being able to communicate in a thoughtful, matured manner, and also come across as someone who is reliable, who's trustworthy, right? Because if you think about any job, not just consulting, it's about, okay, now this particular person who's a fresh grad, right? Or like maybe 2 years out of school, I'm going to put him in front of major CEOs of major companies, right? So I've spoken with, I presented in front of CEOs. How do you come across as someone who's a topic expert, who's thoughtful, who's mature? That's when the whole problem solving, very structural, logical thinking comes in very useful. the remaining like computer software programming, and I don't know any of that, I have to admit, right? But yeah, different skills, fantastic if you have them, but it's not.
Okay. Answering that question, I hope that answers your question, Ida. And then I would also like to take a moment to let all the audience know, if you have any questions, please write your question in the live chat box. And we actually have another question from the audience, who is also from UMich. Thank you, Zarif, for your question. So Zarif is entering his last year of his undergraduate career and is wondering what skills should he prioritize in building for his final year in undergraduate to give him an edge.
Practice your case interviews. Okay, so I'll take a step back. And I guess we're moving, at least I am, moving gears a little bit to the application process. I will show you later on the website how to apply, and we'll go into details of that later. But the way BCG does its interviews is slightly different from your typical behavioral interview, which is, give me an example of a time when you took a leadership position and led the group to success or something like that. So those are more behavioral type interviews. We will have a behavioral questions, but it's very important that you master the case interview as well, right? So a typical interview is about 45 minutes. The first 10 minutes will be behavioral, and the next 20 to 25 will be your case interview. And the final 10 minutes or so will be questions and answer, questions you pose to the interviewer. So if you are looking to join BCG, I think your undergrad career will already build you up to have the skills, the foundational skills that we are after, right? So we spoke about structured thinking, we spoke about being analytically sound, so all of that, we trust your undergrad university would have given you those skills. And I guess those are all kind of put to the test interview. So what is a case interview? A case interview is when you are given a simulated client scenario, right? So they'll give you a problem to solve, and slightly pressured environment. We will see whether you're able to, exactly like what we said earlier, take that problem, break it down into smaller pieces logically, and find a way, a sequence in which to solve that problem, right? So it could be a profit and loss example, for example, right? It could be your client is a garment manufacturer and he intends to enter Vietnam, and he has hired you to help him figure out whether entering Vietnam is a good strategy or not, and how he should do it, right? So that could be the problem. And then you will be asked to, so then you can take some time to gather your thoughts and to break it down, and you say, oh, all right, I would like to attack this problem from a few perspectives. Firstly, I would like to understand the market in Vietnam for garments. And by market, I mean, how many people are buying this particular type of garments, who are the existing players, and so on. And then I would like to understand what share we expect our client to be able to, what market share. So, I won't go on, but that's an example, right? So case interviews, to be honest, it did not come naturally to me. Like I mentioned to you, I had a friend from business school in UMich who was so excited about BCG, and he was definitely applying to BCG. So when I decided that I too would apply to BCG, I grabbed hold of him and said, let's practice case interviews together, like very often. So we would meet up in the library and we would spend maybe an hour or so, a few nights in the week leading up to the interview season, and we actually practiced that. So I found that to be the most helpful for me in preparing for an interview with BCG, or in preparing to get this place at BCG, aside of course from having good grades and having a good resume, right? So having a good resume gets you that interview, right? First and foremost, you have to have a very strong resume, cover letter as well, right? And I personally, so I do recruit for BCG as well, as in I screen CVs and I do conduct interviews. And the best cover me are those that are original. I tend to have an allergic reaction to the cover letters that say, dear recruiter, or dear madam, dear sir, it is my great pleasure to apply for an associate position in the BCG KL office. I'm like, I know you're applying for an associate position in the BCG KL office. Tell me something different, right? So a good cover letter would, for example, one that I recently read was, I learned from my father's failed businesses that working hard is not all to business, that actually you need to have found sound financial understanding and a sound strategy to be able to succeed. And that, like, compared to, please find attached my resume, or I hope you will call me, it's just so much stronger, right? So making your cover letter original, and also making your resume very impactful, illustrate your impact, right? So for example, if you're a treasurer of, let's say, NAMSA, you could say that, you raised X amount of money, $10,000 for the Midwest Games. I don't know if you guys still have that, right? So that gives impact, rather than just saying, oh, you organized you organized the Midwest Games. That doesn't say a lot. But if you say you collected, you raised $10,000 from both Malaysian and US companies to organize the Midwest Games, that's much more impactful. Or even relating back to our conversation earlier about technical skills. So I see some students like to list out like they have skills in Excel and they are proficient in C++ and MATLAB. Honestly, at BCG, I think we are less interested in that, and that just takes up space in your resume. But if you wrote, for example, that you MATLAB model that helped to predict the incidences of machine failure, and because of your tool, you managed to decrease costs of maintenance and repair or downtime by 20%. Now, that's actually interesting. So have a think. In your final year, continue doing well in school, but shift your mind a little bit to prepare very strong cover letters, very strong resumes, and prepare for case interviews if you're applying for BCG.
Kyung, would you like to share us?
Sure. Yeah. I was just reading later, right? Yeah, just putting the timeline. Absolutely agree, right? I mean, spend time to do the consulting prep. There's a lot of consulting clubs, I guess, in UMich as well. Spend time to go through online resources. Spend time to make your resume, your application package, like really, really good, right? Think of it as competing against all the other awesome students. But I would sort of challenge that a bit more, right? I mean, other than sort of making sure that you spend the right time. I think, Zari, if you're not in the final year, I went through that as well. I think the final year is the best year because essentially you are in the final year of school. You have the time to decide what you want, although there's a lot of pressure coming from all sides, right? Because you apply for a job. But it also allows you to select a job that sort of determines how your near future will be like. Because if you like it or not, right, you'll be in your first job for the next, 2 to 3 years at the very least. And if I think back of that, right, given that it's such a pivotal moment in time, right, when you apply for consulting firms, spend a bit of time not just preparing for consulting interviews, not just preparing for your resume application package. Think of a few things, right? Think of interesting candidate. Like BCG, we get a lot of very strong candidates every year coming through the door, right? Everyone is like a president of some different society, a treasurer of different society. Think of how you can stand out from the crowd, right? Doing something interesting. For example, Poh Yi was talking about turning over a dad's failed business, like touch wood, that doesn't happen to any of you guys. But how do you actually do something that's interesting from a technical paper point of view, but something that you remember for a long time as well, right? Because when I think back of my Stanford years, it was great because I was able to sort of shape the graduate council of, it was good on paper, but it was really fun because I was sort of intermingling with different students. I think that's one thing to think about as well is, be well read, right? Know what's going on around the world as well. Like, you don't want a candidate to come in and say, oh, all I know about is Malaysia. Right? And I'm sure all you guys have know what's going on around the world about different things as well. And that sort of ties in with being an interesting candidate. You are expected to, on a daily basis, to have conversations with clients of different ranking, right? From a CEO all the way down to a live reporting to the CEO. And it's about knowing different things and trying to be interesting, and I mean being yourself as well, but being interesting and knowing different things and having that conversations with people. I think that's very interesting. So spend a bit of time on my points and spend a bit of time the final year to think about, where do you want to be? And it's not an easy task. Where do you want to be proud, be well read? And also, I think spend a lot of time, as Poh Yi say, consulting interviews. I probably spent 30 consulting interviews. They were not easy for me, but definitely do spend time doing that and make sure that you excel in them before you step into your first interview.
Thank you so much, Xiong and Poh Yi, for sharing that. I hope that answers your questions, Arif. So we will move on to the next question. So what were some of your best experiences working in the Boston Consulting Group? So we can start with Chi-Hung.
Best experiences. I think the best experience I think of it was probably one of the scariest as well. So it was last year, so 2016, right before I came to the US. I was working on a Malaysian banking case. A bit of context is like, it's a Malaysian bank with regional branches across Southeast Asia. And their goal was to be a top 3 bank within Southeast Asia in the next 5 years, right? So a very big, hairy, ambitious goal. And we had to do it in a relatively short amount of time. It came to a point where I was taking over the entire, what we call module. So it just means that a piece of work that you look into and you own and you drive independently with the help of your different mentors. The higher retail banking. So for in a very simple nutshell, retail banking is essentially when you go to a bank and you do any banking transaction services, transferring money using the ATM is all under retail banking. So not corporate banking, not for companies, but for people like you and me on the streets, right? So I own the entire retail banking, and it came to a point where I was having conversations with teaching him how to actually present in a way that was effective to what the company goals were. I remember it was, I think, like a Tuesday night. So Wednesday, we had what we call a steering committee meeting. A steering committee meeting is essentially, you speak to a CEO after once every 1 or 2 months, where you talk to him about what progress you've done, what decisions you need from him as well. So it was a steering committee meeting on a Wednesday. On Tuesday night, my partner pulled me aside and said, Chi-Hung, tomorrow I want you to present to a CEO. It was a leap of faith, essentially, because I was presenting usually to the, what we call the N-1, the person who reported the CEO. But then one day before, the partner was like, okay, now I present to a CEO. I know you know your stuff. I know you can present well. Just don't be nervous and do a good job. So I think going to the meeting, I think just looking back, it was nerve-wracking, right? It was nerve-wracking. I think I didn't get a lot of sleep back then because I was trying to prepare and trying to impress my partners, impress the CEO. I think what I learned from there was a few things, right? I think A is that BCG, I think Poh Yi probably dropped off.
Yeah, I noticed that
talk about the experience. You probably I think she was not happy. She just dropped off. Should we just wait for her?
Let's hope she'll come back.
No worries. Janice, just check with Poh Yi. I'm just going to continue.
Okay. So I just got a notification. So Poh Yi is going to join again. She is just having some trouble with some technical difficulties at the moment.
Okay, no worries. I'll just make sure my stories last till she comes online again.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So not to sort of belabor the point, but I think the meeting went really well, and I learned that. I think it's the same for a lot of companies, right? If you're good, they will always give you the next opportunity to grow and learn. I think differently was that this was a huge opportunity, right? I'm just going to be honest. I'm 27 this year, So I was 26 last year. I was presenting to the CEO of a bank, and he was asking a lot of questions, and my partners gave me the room to answer them because they know that I do my stuff. So I think that was the best experience because it pushed me to learn. It was nerve-wracking. This was, I think, one of, I mean, I presented to multiple CEOs since, but that was a defining sort of starting experience for me back then. Poh Yi, perfect timing. I just finished my story about me presenting to the CEO and how it sort of made me realize that, you know, BCG pushes you, it makes you learn, but it's nerve-wracking at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, and maybe I'll add a bit of some serious examples and some more fun examples. So like serious examples was I was actually in the same room as the Prime Minister in the Economic Council before presenting our work. So that was quite exciting, right? Because sometimes when you're working till late at night with your Excel model, making PowerPoint slides, you're like, oh, is this ever gonna, you know, end, or is this worth the effort? But when your work, the analysis that you do, the numbers that you crunch, get presented to one of the highest decision-making bodies in Malaysia, that's like, wow, that's like, yeah, the work that I do actually does have impact. So that's one, and that's one that shows the impact that we have. But there are also really fun examples, right? Like you know, eating by the roadside stalls in the streets of Jakarta with my client. Rewarding it was when the client actually comes up to you and say, you know, Poh Yi, you know, your current case is ending, but actually we are engaged BCG for the next case. We like you very much. Could you stay on for the next case as well? And that's just like, wow, you know, all the work that you put in, you feel like it's appreciated, it's valued, and you're learning, you're being stretched, and you grow as well, right? So BCG will stretch you in ways which you did not know you could do in both learning and developing your technical skills, as well as in ways you didn't imagine. For example, how do you beat Jakarta traffic at 7 p.m., which is miles and miles long, and trying to make it for your 9 p.m. flight, right? You just grab your bag and you sit on one of these motorcycle taxi things and you go. So it's not just all boring slides and very serious presentations. It's also lots of real life fun, like I said, eating at roadside stalls. I remember even one time we were going around in Iskandar in a boat, checking out different sites for a wellness development, and it was all still kind of mangrove swamps and all of that, right? So it's very cool. Your work will bring you to places which you won't regularly have access to. It will connect you with many clients who could be as high-ranking as the Prime Minister, or who are just plain a lot of fun to be with. Whatever it is, there's no boring time in BCG, because, you know, as you mentioned, your cases will change every few months. You work with a whole new team within BCG, a whole new client team. It's very dynamic.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's really nice how you actually explain that, you know, you never know if you never try something out. So you just have to believe in yourself and go for it.
Absolutely.
Yep. So the next question is, so are there any opportunities for undergraduate students to get some experience, for example, like an internship from BCG?
We're definitely open to internships. You may apply online. So if you go onto the BCG website and look under careers, you just apply as usual, and you select, I think there's an option there, you select internships. Apply early, because at least for this summer, which I guess starts now, it's already full. So if you're planning to apply for the next summer, I would say apply by late fall. that would be safe. And for full-time applications, we accept applications all year round. We conduct interviews all year round. So the earlier you put your application in, the better, because, well, then you get seen earlier.
So we actually have another question from the audience. Shout out to you, Aysar from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. He is wondering if there is a specific major or field of study that would make certain students better candidates to apply for BCG. Raihan, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. Do you say Aysar?
Yes, Aysar.
Cool. Short answer, Aysar, no. So I think it's very counterintuitive, right? You expect, for example, people from certain backgrounds to thrive more in certain industries. I think that's the best part about consulting, right? Because you have so many different industries, and what is really required is someone who comes in who's really humble to learn, eager to learn, with the drive to learn, but at the same time has a whole problem-solving mindset, being very structural and thinking logically as well. So if you think of, the New Jersey, the New York, the KL office, we have wide-ranging candidates or consultants across different backgrounds. We have economics, we have engineering. I have a friend with a PhD in fine art, PhD in language. She did Latin when she was back in school. Back in the KL office, I can think of a couple of people with PhDs in biotechnology. There are a couple of friends of mine who did law. So I think the list continues. It's just very diverse. But all these different consultants who are friends, as I think of them, like these people are like really, really good in certain things, right? I mean, despite a different background, some of them I may not know about until I talk to them. Like they are really, really good in picking a problem apart to the different pieces, solving them and attacking them in a very targeted, comprehensive, yet thoughtful manner. And I'm not sure whether it relates to their field, or some of them say that they have died before in their studies, but they just sort of learn that through time, and they practice, for example, case interviews, practice with friends, and it's just very diverse in terms of the people that we have in BCG across the different offices I work in.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that, Jihoon. Poh Yi, could you tell us what the application process is like for BCG so we can better understand it?
Sure. I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm going to show you the BCG website. So essentially, all applications will have to go to the website. And let me just go to the main page. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So then this is the main BCG page. Do learn more about us. This thing is about how important digital is to companies. Have a read that will give you a good sense of the work that we do. And if you click here and go to careers, let's go to the careers welcome page. And you can see that we have different segments here. I would assume most of you would like to apply for a consulting career. And if you are fresh from school, that would be an associate position in the traditional track. And so you can read more about us here. You can see here there's how to apply. You can read testimonies from past associates. You see this guy here? His name is Raihan, and he graduated from Harvard University, and he joined the KL office as an associate, and I think after 2 or 3 years, he transferred to the Boston office. And you can see he has been similar to Jihoon, he's been promoted to consultant, right? So it's for you to kind of explore and see whether the testimonies and the experiences featured here kind of pique your interest. And how to apply, let's hit apply. Right, so here you can apply, and I'm just going to put in University of Michigan because I'm from there, or undergraduates, right? And you will see this page come up. Very interestingly, you will see here the recruiting team. There appears to be a recruiting team for the University of Michigan. Now, one note here is that the names that you see here are mostly for BCG US offices. So if you're interested to come back to Malaysia, it won't be very helpful to contact these people. It's more for your information. You can read some of the information here. But let's just go straight to the, where is the apply now button? Well, let's go back here. Let's go back to apply, right? So apply, start application. Oh, sorry, that was the, yeah, and then you need to create a profile, and you will be asked to submit your cover letter as well as your most recent transcript. So it's a very straightforward process. You will also be asked to state which are your offices, your preferred offices. I think you're given 3 options. So for myself, I was very keen on returning to Malaysia, so I put choice number 1, 2, and 3, all SKL. You can do the same. And I don't know how many of you intend to stay in the US, and you're welcome to apply to the US offices, but just be mindful that your resume gets sent to your option number 1 first, right? So think very carefully when you rank the offices, because that would be your first kind of screening. And yeah, we're an equal opportunity employer, so that's good. But have that in mind, because some offices tend to be slightly more competitive than others. So does that help answer questions on how to apply?
Yes, thank you so much for sharing your screen, Poh Yi. And I'm really sure it really helped the audience to give a more visual presentation of the application process. Thank you so much. So we actually have 5 more minutes, and I'm so sorry to the audience, but we can only take 1 more question given the time constraint we have. But Rachel from the audience is wondering, what advice could you give to underclassmen to get a taste of consulting, since it seems that a lot of consulting firms only offer internships to penultimate year students? So we can start with Chiung.
Sure. So I think a couple of things, right? I think if you think of the different consulting firms that are in either Malaysia or different countries, and they typically take in, junior interns, and rightfully so, right? Because these are the students who have gone through many years, and they have practiced enough, they are well prepared, they're probably a bit more seasoned, and thus that just spend a bit more time to recruit these people. So it might be a bit difficult to get in if you're not like a junior. For example, if you're a sophomore. I think that said, even if you don't, do a consulting internship, just think very strategically about, what are the skill sets you want to improve. So for example, when I was, during my engineering, granted that I didn't want to join consulting, but I was doing a lot of, very technical, like problem solving, right? So I think one of the things that could benefit me back then was to learn more about communication. So if it were me back then in my second year, I would probably have taken up an internship that would be not super strong in problem solving, I would say, but a bit stronger in communications, because it's something that I want to learn, brush up my skill set as well. So think carefully along the lines of what you're good at, what you need to improve, actually help you to improve, given the fact that you can't apply for consulting firms. I know of a few friends, very rare exceptions, who probably do 3-year programs, and they do get internships as sophomores, but those are people who sort of graduate within 3 years versus 4 years. So I think that's something to be mindful about, when you think about internships moving forward.
Poh Yi, would you like to offer any more advice? Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say, don't, if you're a sophomore, just apply anyway. And if the response is it's too early, you can come again the following year. That's perfectly fine. And similar to what Chi Hong said, I would also add to say that if you're looking for if your ultimate aim is to be in consulting, or you want to try for that, but maybe you're still a freshman or sophomore, look for experiences that have impact, that experiences in that summer where you can actually create some impact and demonstrate some impact, rather than, for example, trying to get into a big name company, but within that summer internship with that big name company, you are literally making copies or filing things in the storeroom, right? Which is not very impactful. It will be much more interesting to work, for example, with an NGO, and you're able to, for example, say that you, I don't know, helped 300 turtles hatch from or reduce poaching of turtle eggs by X number of percent or something like that, right? And if it's maybe a newly established NGO, nobody has heard of it, but that actually demonstrates impact. That actually shows that you have taken the chance to build something new from ground up, and that you have actually gotten down and literally gotten your hands dirty. So I would suggest that you think along those lines. It's as much as a strong brand name is impressive, but the impact that you have is, I would say, even more important.
Thank you so much for the words of wisdom, Chi Hong and Poh Yi. So last but not least, for our last question to the speakers, do you both have any advice for our future graduates out there in the audience as they are about to embark on their new journey after graduation?
Come home, Malaysia is a great place to be. So, I mean, I'll add a little bit of that. I mean, I knew I wanted to come home. I knew because my parents are here, and my then boyfriend, now husband, also came back. Met him at the University of Michigan. So I was very sure I wanted to come back, but I had a lot of hesitation, right? It's like, oh, I actually, is the compensation going to be sufficient? What is the work culture going to be like? I was not from KL, so I was like, oh no, I'll have to navigate KL traffic and all of these other concerns. And of course, there's concerns about the state of the economy and governance and whatever else there may be. But having returned for 9 years, I'm actually very happy where I am. And I would say I'm even more firmly rooted in Malaysia than ever before. And maybe Chi Hong can share a little bit of perspective, given that he's spending a year abroad as well. But yes, do consider coming home. I mean, if you have an opportunity to work in the US, that's great. And there's always opportunities for you to contribute back to Malaysia as well. But yeah, Malaysia surpassed me, and I'm quite happy to be here.
I definitely do miss a lot of parts of Malaysia. Poh Yi, you're right. My parents were actually just here a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, it's good to be able to see them after I haven't seen them in a long time, and I'm quite close to my parents. I miss the Malaysian food. I think to a large extent, BCG Malaysia was a place I started, right? It sort of taught me a lot of different things. It was a bit of a formative years during my career, so I think there's a very strong sense of belonging with the peers as well whom I started with. Back to the advice piece, I'm just thinking back in my last, year of university, which I still do miss at times. I think uni years are great years, right? It has, again, the impact, the chance for you to determine what you want to do for the near future. I would just say a couple of very simple things that I think that you guys are probably doing a way better job than I was doing back then. Work hard, what you want to do, make mistakes, work hard, but I think more importantly, have fun as well. Enjoy your time at university. Also, I think just spend a bit of time looking at different career options, thinking about, maybe consulting is for you, consulting is not for you. But if it is, or whatever it is, go all out for it. And again, have fun. I think that's my short advice.
Thank you so much, Poh Yi and Chi Hong. So that's all the time we have for today's webinar. Thank you so much for your time, Poh Yi and Chi Hong. We really appreciate it. I'm sure that everyone who watched has a better understanding of the Boston Consulting Group and about all of your amazing experiences. As Poh Yi already mentioned, the summer positions are already full, but you can definitely start applying for fall. to the audience. The sooner the better. So if you're interested in applying for BCG full-time positions, you can head over to the Facebook event page and we will be sharing the recruiting team's email with all of you. But if you have any further personal questions, you can shoot an email to Poh Yi and Chi Hong to ask more about their experiences. And their email can also be found in the Facebook event page. Also, appreciate if you could take a minute or two to fill in a short feedback form via our Facebook event page to leave your thoughts and comments of tonight's webinar, and so that we'll be able to organize an even better one next time. So I would like to, before we end this, I would like to again thank you everyone for joining tonight's webinar, and to our speakers, and have a great weekend. Good luck for your finals too. Yep.
Thank you. Sorry, Raihan, if I just add very quickly as well.
Yeah, sure.
Again, feel free to write to us. Poh Yi and I, have your email address. I think it's think of if you have very critical, important questions, we are more than happy to help you guys. I think we've gone through that before. I think Raihan, a personal note as well. Thanks for having us around. Again, it's a Friday night. I'm going to jump right.
It's all good.
But thanks again, guys, for spending our evening with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. All the best.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Great day.
Bye-bye.